Well, let's continue to unpack electoral matters now, but dealing with it from a different angle. A number of ANC's implicated members in allegations of state capture have made it onto the party's election candidate list. At least that is what is being reported based on that leaked report on Friday. The party's national chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, the Sports Minister, Zizi, and Deputy Minister of Defense, Thabang Makwetla, are among those featured. Let's discuss this now with Cosatu's Parliamentary Coordinator, Matthew Parks. Mr. Parks, good evening to you, and thank you for your time. Let's deal with the leak from within the IEC first. Those list of names of ANC and MK party members, which, if these parties do indeed get enough votes, they will be able to send their members to Parliament. Are you confident that the Electoral Commission's ability to run an election that will be free, fair, and credible?
Yeah. Good evening. Thanks for having us. Look, it's unfortunate that somebody at the IEC chose to leak the ANC's list and the MK party's list prematurely. And I think we do take confidence that the IEC has already come out and apologized for that and said they'll be dealing with it. So that is unfortunate. I think also the IEC does need to review what information it does choose to publish publicly, because it already does, before this leak, publish candidates' ID numbers, and that's a violation of the Protection of Personal Information Act. So you shouldn't be having the president, for example, his ID numbers floating around on Twitter. So that's something they should be reviewing, and they should not be doing that because they can be taken to court by those individuals for violating their personal information privacy. But we do have confidence in the IEC, and I think we do think the day was getting a little bit excited, perhaps a little bit bored, to be writing to the various governments across the US and Europe to question our elections. We've had, this will be our 7th national provincial democratic elections. We've had a similar amount, I think about 6, actually 7, democratic local elections. And they've all been run extremely efficiently without any fear of intimidation, manipulation, etc. South Africa's elections were all about dramas. Our elections are world class. They're transparent, they're free and fair. People are allowed to go and vote. Yes, there are some logistical issues at times. For example, we would hope the IEC would really help to reinforce the amount of staffing and resources put in place, for example, in many informal areas, many rural areas, where you do at times experience logistical issues. But in terms of it being free and fair, transparent, credible, no, without a doubt, we have full confidence in the IEC. And I think that's why we do think it's a little bit disingenuous in the DA, in its excitement and its boredom, perhaps the desperation for attention, to be writing to governments overseas to say our elections are dubious. In fact, some of the countries they wrote to, their elections have had real issues. So I think, in fact, if anything the world can do is learn from South Africa's free and fair elections. Our elections are, without doubt, world class.
Well, the Democratic Alliance has already been on this station trying to justify exactly what you are condemning. Let's then talk to that leaked list of names. And we're not going to talk individuals because those names, I think we'll find out tomorrow if indeed that announcement does come. But the question is, Mr. Parks, why should South Africans vote for your alliance partner, the ANC, if it does announce a list of names who are currently mired in allegations of corruption? There are those who would have lied before courts, perhaps forced to even pay a fine as an admission of guilt. Basically, these are people with a checkered past. Why should South Africans trust your alliance partner with their vote?
Yeah. I think, look, number one issue that people should not be voting for individuals. We don't have a constituency-based system. We've got a party system. People should be voting for parties based upon the manifesto. We think the ANC's manifesto is a progressive one. If implemented, it could really help turn things around. We should also be voting for parties because of the track record. Because, again, one can write anything on a piece of paper. A piece of paper won't reject whatever promises you make. But if you look at the political party spectrum, only the ANC really has a track record of delivering to people with all of the issues, yes, definitely. But overall, since 1994, in terms of running up basic services, in terms of breaking down the legacy of apartheid, in terms of investing working class communities. That's why we support ANC. We're not supporting ANC because of Joe Soap, because of our friend here or there. Because we know individuals will have flaws. Individuals will make mistakes. They'll let you down. And some individuals will break the law. I think to be fair to the ANC, yes, the sins of incumbency are predominated upon itself because it is a ruling party nationally, provincially, locally. But I don't think we should be naive to think only the ANC is battling the demons of corruption. You look at all the other political parties, they have the exact same challenges, whether it's in the DA, whether it's in the EFF, whether it's in the IFP, or even some obscure little party called the NK Party. I think all parties are having these demons. We should be saying, does this party, does the ANC have the commitment to deal with it? And I think, to be fair to the ANC led by President Ramaphosa, they've made significant strides. They've removed a sitting Secretary General of the ANC, very powerful person. They have alienated a former president who was irritated by efforts to tackle corruption. The president managed to remove many compromised persons from cabinet, from the state, from the ANC. I think the one difficulty we're going to experience, though, Claudia, is that we are a constitutional democracy, and it makes it very difficult if the National Prosecuting Authority doesn't charge people, or if it does charge people, it then takes 5 years plus for that person to see the inside of a courtroom. So you have, for example, a very perverse situation in the Tekwini where former mayor resigned because of serious allegation of corruption against her. 4 years down the road, where's the trial? So I think for us, that makes it very difficult because, yes, I must suspect person X or person Y has done something, but if the person not been given a chance to go to court, that makes it very difficult for us. So,
yeah.
I think we will be disappointed by some individuals who would love not to be there, but we do respect this is ultimately the ANC's choice, but we also do appreciate that out of the 200 national to national candidates, out of the 200 from the province to national and similar amounts from province to province, 90% of them will be persons, in fact more than that, of integrity, people with track records. Yes, there'll be some person we wouldn't love to see there, but I think, by and large, it will be a team that we think has got a capacity, has got a track record, has got integrity, and it can turn South Africa around.
Well, let me differ with you, and I'm going to use an example. I'm merely using this person because there is a live case that all South Africans can remember. Zandile Gumede, she is currently serving as an ANC member of parliament based in KwaZulu-Natal. In other words, she's an MPL, member of the provincial legislature. She's charged with corruption amounting to 300 million rand. This is along other individuals. Yet she is allowed to campaign for the ANC. When I say campaign for the ANC, it means that when people see her in those ANC colors, asking them to vote for the ANC. Is that something that Cosatu has a problem with? Because you have expressed frustration with members who law enforcement possibly say, we have a case against you, but they don't see a court of law for 5 years, I think you said. But here's one who's currently before courts. Yes, her case may be dragging, but the allegations against her are just too weighty. Does Cosatu have a problem with that?
So we have a problem with both issues. One is that we agree with the ANC's Integrity Committee, we agree with the ANC Veterans League that people who have got clouds hanging over their heads should not be sitting in Parliament. So we are frustrated by some of those individuals, without getting into individual names. But again, we also have a problem where the National Prosecuting Authority charges someone and then for 5 years doesn't take them to court. That's also a problem because, yes, we have serious suspicion about individuals, but we also need to see the NPA, the courts going through the process, and they can't simply continue to drag their feet forever and a day. There is a correct validity that's saying that justice delayed is justice denied. So we've got a problem with both parts. We would hope the ANC will not have persons who've got clouds hanging over their heads, definitely without a doubt. The ANC's got a significant enough membership to find people who don't have clouds. We know this is a difficult issue in the ANC itself, but also to be fair to those individuals, the NPA has to get its act together. You can't have a situation where for half a decade persons can be charged or investigated and nothing is dealt with. Because then how is society going to take anybody seriously, whether it's the ANC, whether it's government, whether it's law enforcement institutions, if we're not seen to be moving on these issues? Surely society is going to do much better. And that's also why, Claudia, we've been constantly raising as Cosatu at Parliament. We need to not only increase the personnel and the capacity of the South African Police Service to do the investigation, but also got to fill critical vacancies for the National Prosecuting Authority, for the courts. We can't continue to normalize a scenario where it can not only take you 2 years, but even 5 years to get your case processed through courts. If we're still about everybody society dealing with corruption, then we've got to make sure our law enforcement institutions, the judiciary, have got the capacity to process issues. It can't be this long, never-ending soap operas.
Matthew, call this a contradiction in terms. Yes, you have said you have a problem, but I don't hear you being emphatic enough that Zandile Gumede should simply not be among ANC representatives who are public-facing in a period like this. In other words, going out there asking people for votes. And here's why I'm saying this. Your members, or should I say SAMWU members, this is a Cosatu union, and there has been an ongoing strike in KZN by SAMWU members who want their salaries raised. Zandile Gumede is charged with wastage. Well, let me not say wastage. Corruption. That's the charge. Of 300 million rand. It relates to the solid waste tender in KZN. Here's my question to you. Are you, as Cosatu, comfortable using those hard-earned monies of the very workers of SAMWU who have given this money to Cosatu to say, you can give this to the ANC in order to back it in its election campaigns? Because that's what you do with every election that comes along. You back the ANC with workers' monies. So here's a contradiction. Are you comfortable, yet again, to give the ANC those workers' monies, despite all of what I've painted?
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, we don't give the ANC money per se ourselves. We do our own campaigns, we do our own posters. So there's a small technical correction there. But no, look, I mean, the contradiction is there, you're right. But I think we've also been quite clear that we've supported the ANC's Integrity Committee. We've supported the ANC Veterans League that says those people who've been charged do need to step aside. We are frustrated, we've been publicly frustrated at times that the ANC has taken too long itself to undertake its own internal processes. Just like we've been frustrated with the National Prosecuting Authority and the courts themselves too, dragging their feet, because ultimately the ANC can't prosecute anybody. That's up to the courts and the NPA and the police to do so. So we're frustrated on both sides. I think both sides need to do much better. But we do appreciate that at the end of the day, we'll have the ANC deploying 200 plus MPs to Parliament. And the majority of them will be persons of capacity and integrity. We have heard the ANC president saying that if people then, the courts do actually begin to move, then yes, they can revisit those persons on the list. So we hope that door remains open, that when those persons do begin to see the inside of a courtroom, they can be recalled. So I think that is a difficult thing. If we had drawn the list ourselves as Cosatu, then we might have drawn it quite differently. But nonetheless, we do think on the majority of issues the ANC has managed to sort out. But of course, we are frustrated on some parts where it has not been dealt with properly.
Finally, Matthew Parks, how should the ANC deal with members who remain within the ranks of the ANC but are secretly working with the newly formed MK party, whose face, by the way, is that of the former President Jacob Zuma? How should the ANC deal with this?
Yeah. Look, the ANC just needs, on both questions, they're both serious questions. They need to simply implement their own resolutions. The ANC has got a step-aside resolution. It should be seen to be implementing it without fear and favor at all levels. And equally, the ANC's constitutional prohibition, which any other political party would also have, that if you campaign for another party, you should be considering yourselves expelled. That also should be implemented without fear and favor. The ANC should not be seen to be soft, because society looks up to it with much higher expectations than other parties, because it is a ruling party. It has a majority of, most of South Africans. So society correctly does hold the ANC to higher standards of accountability, and it needs to be seen to be at all times implementing its own resolutions on that regard.
Matthew Parks is Cosatu's parliamentary coordinator.